Cobra Kai is the Karate Kid sequel that all fans have been waiting for, continuing the story of Johnny Lawrence. Recently, Ralph Macchio, who plays Daniel LaRusso in the 80s franchise, opened up about some terrible pitches for the sequel. Stay tuned as we take a look at that and talk about how 2024 is going to be way different from the last one we saw in 2010. Let's dive right into it. First up, let's look at those terrible pitches. Cobra Kai is extremely successful, but it took a long time for it to get where it is right now. Sure, fans of all ages enjoy it, but that's only because there's something really special about it. A lot of thought and hard work went into it, and you can see that. Daniel LaRusso and David Lawrence find themselves being rivals in martial arts once again in his show. Of course, it's not the same as the 1984 original movie, but people still love it. Ralph Macchio stars in this comedy TV show and left everyone impressed once again with his performance. Recently, he's been doing a lot of press, but apart from that, he wrote a memoir titled Waxing On: The Karate Kid and Me, which dives into some shocking pitches for the sequel. Initially, the star admitted he was actively trying to separate himself from the typecasting, especially back in the 90s. We can't really blame him, honestly, considering the kind of pitches that were being sent his way. In one of them, the writers wanted Miyagi to die tragically, but his story would live on. How would that happen, you ask? According to that pitch, Mr. Miyagi's ghost comes back to guide Daniel. In another one of these ridiculous pitches, Daniel LaRusso is supposed to become the Miyagi to another troubled kid who's been bullied at school. Also, this kid has a drug problem. Next up, that's not even the worst of it. In his memoir, Ralph Macchio cites a favorite out of all the ridiculous pitches he turned down. He said this one was particularly memorable for him and John Avildsen because of the enthusiasm with which the writer presented the elevator pitch to them. It was basically just like this. Imagine if Rocky Balboa had a child and Danielson did as well. They were both F-ups, and Rocky and Stallone had to come together and then join in a Miyagi-Mickey style of fight training. The writer was really confident with this story for a sequel. He even thought that people would go nuts over it. Can you imagine the reaction that John and Ralph had? We're laughing just thinking about it. There's one more potential storyline that we'll get into in this video. The writer wanted Allie to be pregnant with Johnny's child, even though Johnny is married to Kumiko in that sequel. As a result, Johnny can't deal with the whole situation. It's actually quite funny when you think about it. All this seems pretty funny, honestly, and we have to give the writers props for coming up with these. Thankfully, Cobra Kai and the actors and producers involved waited a long time for the right storyline, and that's what made it so successful. Followed by, why did Ralph Macchio wait so long? Cobra Kai's first season was released in 2018. That's literally decades after the 1984 All-Valley tournament where Daniel defeated Johnny. Macchio admitted that he's extremely protective about his Karate Kid character. He also added that he holds it to a very high personal standard, which makes a lot of sense considering his emotional attachment to the character. He always wanted to pick up Daniel's character again, and he has a great appreciation for everyone who tried to, but he had one condition: to be on the same wavelength with the writers of the show. As a result of this, he passed on many pitches. Ralph has only mentioned a few of them in his memoir, and there are probably dozens more of those that he hasn't had the chance to talk about. Either way, we're really glad that the Cobra Kai franchise tried its best to keep things super authentic, because at the end of the day, that is what makes it so enjoyable for everyone else. Coming up, some other things that Ralph Macchio talked about. Macchio will always be known as the Karate Kid, and he says he's perfectly content with that. In his memoir, he talked about how he's so happy to be a part of the rare instance when Hollywood gets it all right. It's awesome to see him claim this as an inseparable part of his identity as an actor, but we have to admit that it's his protectiveness of Daniel LaRusso which got him this far. If he just accepted any and every pitch sent his way ever since the 90s, they would never be nearly as successful as Cobra Kai. The 2018 sequel has the perfect mix of comedy, nostalgia, and drama, which is definitely something viewers need more of today. Moving on, let's get into the success of Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai is a wildly successful TV show. It just wrapped up the 5th season a few weeks ago, and people are still talking about it. As we just said, people love it so much because they've tried to keep it as authentic as possible and preserve the spirit of the first Karate Kid movie from 1984. From the actors to the storyline, everything is just spot on. Everyone also talked about how the essence of Mr. Miyagi is still present in the show, and even though he's passed on, his presence is still felt in many ways. That's definitely not easy to accomplish, but the Cobra Kai team has done it really well. Even though Johnny is the protagonist in Cobra Kai and Daniel enters as one of the enemies, the two characters are so well developed with such great and complete exciting arcs that it makes you feel happy and nostalgic, especially because the actors waited so long to reprise these iconic roles. Let's talk about how Sony's 2024 Karate Kid will be different. The 1984 Karate Kid film is a classic and will always be. It's no surprise that it's been repackaged and sold to viewers in different eras again and again. There have been countless remakes, from ones in the zeros to the 2010 one which features Jaden Smith. All of them are amazing in their own regard, but one thing all of them have in common is the blueprint, the 1984 film. Sony is producing another Karate Kid movie which is set to be released in 2024. Even though we don't exactly know any concrete details about the next remake, one thing is for sure, it has to be different from the 2010 remake in one particular way. It has to focus on karate. Seems like common sense, right? But if you've seen the 2010 Karate Kid recently, or even remember a little of it, you know that it focuses on a completely different type of martial arts. Instead of learning karate, Dre Parker was learning kung fu. Even though the 2010 movie was amazing and repackaged the whole Karate Kid franchise for a newer generation, it somehow missed out on an essential part. The 2024 remake is hopefully going to be something that's more focused on going back to the roots of the franchise. This means that it's probably going to be the closest ever to the 1984 Karate Kid movie. At least that's what things are looking like so far. If all is done right, it could be extremely successful. Followed by, what will the new film be like? Cobra Kai is responsible for keeping the spirit of the original Karate Kid movies alive. Even though the 2010 movie was pretty popular, it faded out pretty quickly. Now, even though the TV show is responsible for some sort of Karate Kid renaissance, Sony confirmed that the new movie will not be linked to the TV show in any way. It could also be a remake of the original film with similar characters in similar situations, but could also be something completely different. Both of them seem equally exciting, especially because it would be interesting to see how the same plot would play out in today's world. However, the possibility that it just wouldn't be the same is also fascinating. Anything could happen. We wonder who's going to be the new Mr. Miyagi, or rather the mentor in the new film. The cast hasn't been announced yet. Julie Pierce and Jackie Chan made great mentors, and we can't wait for the next legend in the franchise. Finally, what's in store for the franchise now? The creator of Cobra Kai confirmed that he's not involved in any way with the production and directing of the new film, and there's nothing been announced yet other than the fact that it's scheduled to release in 2024. Fans of the franchise are patiently waiting for any announcements about the cast and literally anything else, so you should definitely keep an eye out. Let's hope they do the original 1984 film justice with this remake. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think was the most ridiculous pitch for a Karate Kid sequel? Are you excited for Sony's 2024 remake of the original film? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next one.